At 57, Steffi Graf's story looks perfect from the outside. 22 Grand Slam singles titles, 377 weeks as world number one. A golden slam so rare that tennis still talks about it like a miracle. But behind that perfect record was a private cost that most fans never saw. Because the most heartbreaking part of Steffi Graf's life is not that she lost everything. It is that she won almost everything and still had to sacrifice pieces of herself to survive it. Before we continue, if you love real stories about legends, pressure, sacrifice, and the hidden human side behind fame, make sure to subscribe. This is not just the story of a champion. This is the story of a young girl who became a machine for greatness before the world ever gave her the chance to simply be human. When people talk about Steffi Graf, they usually begin with the numbers. They mention the 22 Grand Slam titles, the legendary forehand, the Olympic gold, and the calm face that rarely showed fear. They remember a player who looked almost untouchable, a woman who moved across the court with silent discipline and made opponents feel like they were already losing before the point was over. But numbers can be dangerous, because numbers make greatness look clean. They do not show the pressure. They do not show the loneliness. They do not show the childhood that slowly disappeared behind training courts, expectations, and a future that seemed chosen before she fully understood it. And this is where the real story begins. Steffi Graf was born in Mannheim, West Germany, in 1969. Long before the world knew her name, she was just a little girl with a racket in her hand and a father who believed she had something special. Her father, Peter Graf, introduced her to tennis at a very young age, and almost immediately he saw qualities that were unusual for a child: focus, timing, discipline, and an almost frightening ability to concentrate. For most children, sport is a game. For Steffi, tennis quickly became something much heavier. It became a routine, then a mission, then a destiny. But then, everything changed. As Steffi grew older, tennis became the center of her entire life. Her father was not only her parent. He became her coach, her manager, and one of the strongest influences around her career. Under his guidance, Steffi trained with a seriousness that separated her from other children her age. While many young girls were living ordinary childhoods, making friends, going through normal teenage moments, and discovering who they were, Steffi was being shaped for elite competition. She was learning how to win, how to stay silent under pressure, and how to survive in a world where weakness was rarely forgiven. That is the hidden tragedy of greatness. From a distance, it looks beautiful. From the inside, it can feel like a cage. When Steffi entered professional tennis as a teenager, she did not arrive like someone chasing fame. She was not loud. She was not theatrical. She did not try to become a celebrity personality. She simply walked onto the court and let her game speak. Her speed was brutal. Her footwork was sharp. Her forehand became one of the most feared weapons in tennis history. Opponents knew where the danger was coming from, but many still could not stop it. She did not need drama. The scoreboard created the drama for her. But this was only the beginning. The better Steffi became, the heavier the pressure became. Every match turned into a test. Every tournament became a public judgment. If she won, people acted like it was normal. If she lost, people asked what was wrong. That is a cruel situation for any young athlete, because success stops feeling like achievement and starts feeling like obligation. Steffi was not just playing for herself anymore. She was playing for family, country, sponsors, fans, and a media machine that wanted a perfect champion every time she stepped onto the court. And the more perfect she looked, the less room she had to be human. By the late 1980s, Steffi Graf was no longer just a rising tennis star. She was the face of women's tennis. In 1988, she achieved something that still feels almost impossible. She won the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, the US Open, and Olympic gold in the same calendar year. It became known as the Golden Slam. At only 19 years old, Steffi had climbed higher than almost any tennis player in history. The world looked at her and saw perfection. But perfection creates a dangerous prison, because once people believe you are unbeatable, they forget you can still feel fear. What happened next showed the real cost of that perfection. After 1988, Steffi did not get freedom. She got expectation. From that moment on, anything less than dominance felt like disappointment to the public. Fans wanted another miracle. Journalists wanted another headline. Rivals wanted her crown. And Steffi, still so young, had to carry all of it with a calm expression. She rarely revealed too much emotion. Some called her cold. Some called her shy. But maybe the truth was simpler. She had learned early that emotions could become weapons used against her. So she protected herself with silence. But silence does not mean pain is absent. Sometimes silence means pain has nowhere safe to go. While fans saw trophies, they did not always see what Steffi was losing. They did not see the endless travel. They did not see the hotel rooms. They did not see the pressure before every match. They did not see the loneliness of being admired by millions, but truly understood by very few. They did not see how much of her youth had been spent chasing perfection. And perfection always demands payment. Then the sport around her began to change. A new generation of players came for Steffi's place. The women's game became more powerful, more aggressive, and more physically demanding. Every young player wanted to defeat the legend. Every match was a reminder that greatness has to defend itself again and again. And then came Monica Seles, a fearless rival whose game brought a new energy to tennis. Seles was intense, emotional, and relentless. Her two-handed shots from both sides changed the rhythm of rallies. She was not intimidated by Steffi's reputation. For a time, it looked like women's tennis was about to enter one of its greatest rivalries. But then, everything changed in the darkest way. In 1993, Monica Seles was stabbed on court during a tournament in Hamburg by an obsessed fan. It was one of the most shocking incidents in sports history, and it left a permanent scar on tennis. Steffi had nothing to do with that attack, but her career would forever be discussed alongside that tragedy. Some fans and critics later argued about how tennis history might have looked if Seles had not been forced away from the game. Others debated records, rankings, and what could have been. And Steffi, who had built her career through discipline and sacrifice, had to live with a strange burden, being judged not only for what she achieved, but also for circumstances beyond her control. That is another cruel part of fame. You can do everything right and still be placed inside someone else's tragedy. Steffi kept playing, she kept winning. She remained one of the strongest athletes in the world. But the atmosphere around her was no longer simple. Every victory came with history attached to it. Every question seemed to carry hidden weight. And while the tennis world debated rivalries and legacies, Steffi's private world was becoming more fragile. And this is where the real problem started. For years, Peter Graf had been seen as the father behind the champion. He had guided Steffi's rise, managed parts of her career, and helped build the structure around her success. But later, the tax case involving her father became a painful public scandal. For Steffi, this was more than a legal headline. It was deeply personal. She had spent her entire career trying to be known for discipline, dignity, and hard work. Suddenly, her family name was being dragged through headlines, and the private world she had tried so hard to protect was being discussed by strangers. Imagine giving your entire youth to a sport, building one of the cleanest and most respected legacies in tennis, and then watching your personal life become public noise. For someone as private as Steffi, that kind of exposure must have been deeply painful. Reporters wanted answers. The public wanted details. The woman who had spent years mastering silence was now surrounded by questions she never wanted to answer. But champions are often expected to keep moving, even when their personal world is breaking. So Steffi returned to the one place she understood best, the tennis court. But even there, peace was disappearing. Her body had already started paying the price for years of brutal movement, sudden stops, explosive footwork, and relentless competition. Tennis, at the highest level, is not gentle on the body. It punishes knees, backs, feet, hips, and joints. For a player like Steffi, whose game depended on speed and precision, every injury carried a terrifying question. What happens when the body can no longer obey the mind? And that question slowly became impossible to ignore. By the mid-1990s, Steffi was still winning, but the scoreboard no longer told the whole story. Behind victories were injuries, pain, and emotional exhaustion. Her body was not the same machine it had been in 1988. The years were catching up. The pressure was catching up. The private battles were catching up. But because she was Steffi Graf, people still expected greatness. That is the curse of being legendary. Even when you are hurting, the world remembers the version of you that never seemed to break. What happened next shocked fans because it showed a different kind of champion. In 1999, Steffi arrived at the French Open not as the unstoppable force of the past, but as a wounded veteran. Many people did not expect her to win another major title. Younger stars were rising, and Martina Hingis was already one of the leading names of the new era. Tennis was moving forward, as it always does, but legends do not always disappear quietly. At Roland Garros, Steffi fought through one of the most emotional runs of her career. She was no longer dominating like the teenager who conquered the world. She was surviving, fighting, and pulling one last miracle from a body that had already given almost everything. The final against Martina Hingis became more than a tennis match. It felt like a battle between eras. Hingis represented youth, confidence, and the future. Steffi carried experience, pain, history, and the weight of everything she had survived. At moments, it looked like the match might slip away, but Steffi refused to vanish. Point by point, she fought back. The crowd could feel something rare happening. This was not perfection. This was courage. And then, somehow, she did it. Steffi Graf won the 1999 French Open, claiming her 22nd and final Grand Slam singles title. It was one of the most powerful moments of her career because it was not about being untouchable anymore. It was about refusing to disappear before writing one last chapter. It was about a champion proving that even after years of pressure, injury, public scrutiny, and private pain, the heart that made her great was still there. But sometimes a final triumph is also a goodbye. Only a few months later, in August 1999, Steffi Graf announced her retirement. To fans, it felt sudden. But for Steffi, it may have felt like finally breathing after holding her breath for almost her entire life. She was only 30 years old, but she had already lived a lifetime inside pressure. She had won everything. She had carried everything. And her body could no longer keep paying the price. But retirement did not simply erase the past. For most people, walking away from a career at 30 might sound like freedom. No more rankings, no more headlines after losses, no more forcing an injured body onto the court, no more questions about whether she was finished. But for Steffi, tennis had never been just a job. It had been her childhood, her identity, her schedule, her family structure, and in many ways, her prison. Leaving tennis meant asking a frightening question: who am I when the game is gone? So what do you think? Was Steffi Graf's greatest victory her Golden Slam, or the peaceful life she built after walking away from the pressure? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more emotional stories about the hidden cost of fame, make sure to subscribe and watch the next documentary.